Welcome to this explainer. Okay, the journey we are about to take today is quite frankly a staggering historical and legal convergence. We're going to bridge 17th century exiled European monarchs with modern cutting-edge blockchain law and then connect the whole shebang to cultural movements right here in the American heartland. Now, I know it sounds like a geopolitical thriller, but it's entirely grounded in the historical and legal realities detailed in our sources. Let's dive in.
Here's our path for today. We'll start with the Crown contrast, followed by the Jacobite succession and the American Jacobite imagination. Then we'll explore resisting technocracy, and finally, wrap up with the Liechtenstein solution.
All right, Section 1, the Crown contrast. Let's look at two very different models of sovereignty.
There's a stark contrast between two distinct historical ideas of what a crown actually represents, and this is absolutely crucial for understanding the cultural resonance we'll get into later. Think about the traditional expansionist model, epitomized by the modern London monarchy. This model is highly agentic. It's characterized by political interference and a centralized, secular approach to progress. Contrast that with the Liechtenstein model, which is ruled by a fürst, or sovereign prince. This is a totally non-expansionist crown. It's legally anchored to purchased territory, not conquered lands. It operates strictly within constitutional bounds, functioning almost like a sovereign trust that's focused on private wealth and legal certainty.
Moving on to Section 2, the Jacobite succession. This is where we get into a fascinating dynastic dispute.
Let's walk through this centuries-long timeline. Back in 1688, King James II was deposed in what's known as the Glorious Revolution. Well, his supporters, the Jacobites, viewed this as an illegal violation of divine hereditary rights. They basically believed you couldn't just transfer the crown via a parliamentary act. This deeply held belief fueled major uprisings, most famously Bonnie Prince Charlie's Rebellion in 1745. But, as history shows, the Jacobites were defeated. By 1807, the direct male line of the Stuart kings completely died out. But here is the kicker. The legal claim didn't just vanish. It simply passed through the female line to other European royal houses, eventually landing with the House of Wittelsbach, and soon it will pass entirely to the House of Liechtenstein.
So what does the current heir actually think of all this? The genealogical heir today is Duke Franz of Bavaria, and he neutrally describes his position as a charming historical curiosity. He is absolutely not actively trying to overthrow the British government. In fact, King Charles has even joked with him about who actually has the better claim to the throne. But while the royal heirs themselves treat this strictly as history, the idea of this alternative succession remains highly potent.
All of this historical convergence comes down to one specific person, Prince Joseph Wenzel. He is the future heir to the reigning constitutional crown of Liechtenstein and, simultaneously, the eventual heir to the legitimate Jacobite claim. This means for the first time in centuries, the theoretical Stuart claim actually merges with an actual reigning European sovereign. Ancient traditional legitimacy is about to seamlessly unite with the modern, constitutionally bound Liechtenstein crown. It's truly an incredible convergence. Which brings us to Section 3, the American Jacobite Imagination, and a yearning for faith. Drawing on the work of scholar Dr. Paul Sewers, our sources introduce a fascinating theoretical framework called Jacobitism of the Imagination. Sewers argues that the story of the exiled Stuarts has morphed into a broader cultural metaphor. It represents this deep cultural yearning for a lost faith and a hidden traditional order. It's essentially a fundamental resistance to the alienation of secular modernity and globalization.
You can actually see this imagination mapped out in specific cultural touchstones, particularly in the American heartland and Appalachia. Sewers points to a deep attachment to the King James Bible and the strong Scots-Irish and Ulster roots that brought a sort of restive rebelliousness and localism to the American frontier. He even anchors this complex philosophy in something many of us know very well, the mythic structures of J.R.R. Tolkien. Think about it. Tolkien's Return of the King perfectly captures this exact yearning for a lost, legitimate sovereign and a return to a rooted, spiritual community rather than being swallowed up by a centralized empire.
That leads perfectly into Section 4, resisting technocracy and the resulting cultural pushback.
So, I want to pose a question directly to you. What exactly is this culture actively resisting? Why on earth does a 17th century concept resonate so deeply with modern Americans in our highly digital age?
The sources map out a deep ideological contrast here. On one side, you have the Jacobite ideal of traditionalist legitimacy. This values faith, extreme localism, and Sobornost, which is a concept of mystical community solidarity. On the very opposite end, you have modern technocracy, which pushes rapid globalization, secular progress, and an increasing migration into virtual realities. Scholars argue that this American Jacobite culture is a direct, defensive reaction against the centralizing forces of the modern technocratic state. Essentially, they're waiting for a system that respects local autonomy and traditional rights over top-down interference.
And finally, Section 5, the Liechtenstein solution and the rise of digital sovereignty.
Let's walk through how the Principality of Liechtenstein has uniquely positioned itself to offer exactly this kind of system. Back in 2020, Liechtenstein enacted the TVTG, which is widely known as the Blockchain Act. Now, this wasn't just about cryptocurrency. It fundamentally rewrote civil law for the digital age by creating what's called the token container model. Think of a token literally as a digital vessel. Just as a physical crown holds the legal rights of a monarch, this digital container legally holds real-world rights, like property or equity. It explicitly connects the analog history of the bearer of a crown to the brand new reality of digital bearer assets, ensuring that whoever holds the digital key holds the absolute legal right, and it's all backed by a sovereign state.
This solid legal foundation allows for incredible innovations like the QGov protocol, which operates right out of Liechtenstein. Now, QGov isn't just some wild, permissionless blockchain. It combines a decentralized ledger with strictly enforceable private contracts under a constitutional framework. It perfectly mirrors the Liechtenstein monarchy itself, really. Secure, non-expansionist, and protecting private agreements, totally free from the interference of larger centralized governments. It offers the exact autonomy and local certainty that the American Jacobite imagination so deeply values.
All of this leaves us with a rather provocative thought to chew on. As Prince Joseph Wenzel prepares to inherit both the reigning constitutional crown of Liechtenstein and the ancient traditional claim of the Stuart kings, he's going to preside over a microstate that has officially legally codified digital sovereignty and decentralized finance. So, is this convergence of ancient, unbroken lineage and cutting-edge, decentralized digital law the modern, functional answer to the Jacobite imagination? Is this, in a way, the ultimate return of the king for the digital age? It's a truly fascinating reality to consider, and a perfect example of how ancient history continues to shape our technological future. Thanks for joining us on this explainer, and we'll see you next time.